Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday, and welcome to your Action Drug Rehab Hour. My name is Cary Quashen. I am your host, and I got some guests with me today. I think you've been on the show before, haven't you? Robbie Robinson, which is the intervention specialist.
Yes.
Intervention specialist for the Sheriff's Department. God, you know what? That sounds like a serious, what's it called?
Well, it is. Thank you for the introduction. And we have a real good guest over here, Miss Stephanie Ortiz.
Oh, I thought you were going to say yourself.
No, not me. I'm not a legend in my own mind.
Yes, you are. I'm just messing with you. No, but Robbie Robinson has been doing. He's one of the heroes here in Santa Clarita, and I do a lot of speaking and a lot of speaking with Robbie, and I'm always honored to do that, and I'm honored that you're on the show today.
Well, thank you.
And we're going to talk about parenting and enabling and what you do with the Sheriff's Department in a few minutes. I also have Stephanie Ortiz.
Yes.
Stephanie's an old friend of mine. We go way back. So here's the deal with Stephanie. So I've been treating people now in substance abuse and mental health for 40 years. I've seen every trend that you can imagine, from the old Mini Bennies to the Black Beauties to the Quaaludes to the crank to the crack to the crystal meth and to the heroin to the opiates and now to the fentanyl. And it's different than it's ever been in history. This is not one of those fads or phases anymore. It used to be, people were recreationally using or experimenting with drugs. If you recreationally use drugs or experiment with drugs today, you have a chance of dying almost every single time you do that. So it's different than it's ever been. I was talking with Robbie, actually, over at one of the churches Saturday morning, and I was saying, can somebody tell me one drug that's not physically and emotionally addictive? And everybody looked at everybody. There is no drugs that are not physically and emotionally addictive anymore. There's none. So these kids, they don't have a chance anymore. How do you experiment with drugs that is physically and emotionally addictive? Everyone.
Right.
Now, to boot, there are no real drugs. We know that almost 100% of all drugs, street drugs right now, are tainted with fentanyl. And out of all the pills, 6 out of 10 fainted pills have the ability of killing somebody.
Correct.
So you can't experiment with drugs anymore, and you can't recreationally use them anymore. And recreational usage always got me anyways. What does that mean? You play soccer and shoot dope? It's like, come on. I was speaking to a mom about a year ago, and we were talking, and she says, my kid doesn't really have a drug problem. I said, well, tell me about your kid. Well, she smokes a lot of weed. I said, okay. She drinks some alcohol sometimes, and occasionally she uses cocaine. I said, and how long has this been going on? She goes, about 2 years. I said, does that sound like experimenting with drugs or recreationally using drugs? So I'm going to take it for a minute. Robbie, you could help me, and then we're going to go to Stephanie. But what does experimenting with drugs look like to you?
Well, today,
just experimenting now.
Well, if you classify it as experimenting in today's culture, that means I do it every once in a while. But what happens is a lot of these kids who are doing it once in a while get hooked. And even if you say, well, I just do it on the weekends. So you do it on the weekends, and then the next weekend you're going to want more.
That's kind of recreational.
Yeah, that's recreational. Yeah.
And then it turns into?
And then it turns into addiction. And then what happens is you put in your mind that I'm recreationally using the drug, but what happens is that you are using it on a regular basis, especially on the weekends. My mother said something to me recently. You may be young on the outside, but when you put drugs, alcohol, or smoke, you're dying slowly on the inside. Right. So what happens is a lot of these kids feel when you're young, nothing's going to happen to me. That is the pervasive ideology of a lot of kids now.
And parents.
And
my kid's not that bad.
He's not bad. He just smokes a little marijuana. And then you're looking at it, but we all know, all three of us know, that a lot of these drugs, there's so many hallucinogenics in these drugs now that these people are really going crazy. And so I just with you and being out in the street with you, you're seeing people, what are you doing? I just smoke marijuana recreationally. But you look at them and you can tell that they are really now addicted or they're addicts now.
Well, it's different, and I'll talk about that in a minute. What does experimenting with drugs look like to you, Stephanie?
Well, I would probably say experimenting with drugs is every once in a while. We have a lot of kids that are in high school that are experimenting, after school or at the parks, things like that, where, it's just, again, every once in a while.
Right.
And unfortunately, every once in a while turns into once every day, and then before you know it, they're addicted.
And here's how it looks like to me. Okay, somebody experiments with drugs. That means somebody walks into a room, a party, they're 15 years old, and somebody says, want a hit? And he goes, what is it? Well, it's pot. And the guy's, well, I don't really want to use drugs, but I'll take a hit. Right. And he takes a hit and he puts it down and he goes, Then he goes to another party and somebody says, you want some tequila? He takes a sip, puts it down, never finishes it. Right. That's experimenting with drugs. But the person that says you want a hit goes like this, whoa, that's good. They're already screwed.
Right.
Because if you have an addictive personality, there's no such thing as experimenting with drugs anymore. Because once you do it, you fall in love with it, you're screwed.
That's true.
So that's kind of the scary part. In today's world, it's different than it's ever been before because everything out there is different.
Yes.
The marijuana is not the same, and I want to. Yes. I know where I want to go, but I want to talk about this for a second.
Sure.
Because now I'm on a roll.
Yes.
But they legalized what a couple years ago? What did they legalize?
They legalized marijuana.
Okay, you said it. Mm-hmm. They legalized what?
Marijuana.
But that's not what these kids are using.
No.
What are they using? THC. So no one ever talks about the difference between THC and marijuana, between edibles and marijuana, between vaping that oil stuff and marijuana, between the gummy bears and marijuana. So marijuana, you smoke it. Am I wrong?
Right.
It's been a long time. I've been sober 42 years. I almost forgot. Just kidding. So marijuana, you smoke it. THC is nothing. You don't smoke it.
Right.
It's in edibles, oils, all kinds of stuff, right? Now, marijuana used to be 0.3 milligrams, somewhere around there. THC, that's the drug that gets you high. In a joint now, it's anywhere between 25 and 30% THC. That's a huge difference. Edibles, if you look at the gummy bears and the stuff that these kids are vaping, says 100% THC. How many times stronger is that? That's not marijuana anymore.
Right.
This is straight THC. I'm putting more people in psychiatric facilities in the last year from that high-grade THC than I have crystal meth this year. That's freaking scary. It's causing panic attacks, anxiety attacks, chronic throwing up, chronic coughing, psychosis, and sometimes we're worried that they're not going to come back.
Yes.
Severe depression and all kinds of stuff. So remember the message I want to give out there, marijuana and THC is different. Marijuana has THC in it. That's what gets you high. But what these kids are doing is not smoking it. They're vaping it. They're eating it. They're doing all kinds of other stuff. And the sad thing about it, I was speaking to an ER doctor that says approximately 5 to 7 people a day go to the ER because they're overdosing on THC.
Right.
And now they're not going to die, but it's still an overdose.
Well, with everything that you and Stephanie have been saying, the reason this is just my opinion, there's a lot of, quote, experimentation because there are no consequences for smoking any more illegal drugs. Now, there is a question of people who smoke marijuana because of cancer and other things. I get that.
And we don't
totally
have a
understand
problem with that.
Don't have a problem. But a lot of times, as I said on Saturday, if there are no accountability, no responsibility equals no consequences. So people are more apt now, especially kids and even adults, but mostly kids, to do it because in their mind, nothing's going to happen to me. Nothing's happening. But what happens is, all three of us know that when you constantly are using on a regular basis and using, you're killing yourself inside, and then you become suspect to other things. You start stealing and doing other criminal activities to support your habit.
Right.
And that's what I look at. And in closing with this, I'm going to all of the schools in the area, especially the high schools, and what am I dealing with? Possession of marijuana on school grounds, possession of a vape. And I'm also seeing more selling, narcotic selling, drug selling, kids being arrested for drug dealing through the internet and stuff, and it's all happening on campus. And in their mind, nothing's going to happen.
Because nothing's going to happen.
There's nothing to them. But I think with some of the lawmakers, I think things are going to start changing because it's getting out of hand now. Mm-hmm. It's getting out of hand.
I would hate, you could jump in this one because you work at with the sheriff's department. Mm-hmm. I'd hate to be a cop today.
Well, the sheriffs do a fabulous job.
They do.
They are unsung heroes. They are men of honor, a lot of them that I work with, and we have a great captain. I have a very good sergeant that I work with, Sergeant Andrade, very good. Captain Diaz, Sergeant Andrade. I mean, I know them, and they're very good, and they're about doing the job. But what happens, we need the public. We need the support of people in the neighborhoods to identify some of these people. But, they're doing a fabulous job out there.
They are, sadly, and this is terrible. If an adolescent gets arrested for a misdemeanor, what happens?
Nothing.
What happens?
Nothing.
What do you mean nothing?
Well, nothing's going to happen.
They won't even go to court.
They won't even go to court.
The DA dismisses it.
When, not to continue on, but when I was a probation officer, I was talking with Steph over there.
That suck?
When I was a probation officer, if you got caught with marijuana, you did the juvenile alternative program where you picked up trash, or you did time in juvenile hall. If it continued on, there were other measures. Camp was the last measure, and kids went to camp 3, 6, 9 months, and then they went to the California Youth Authority if they were constantly chronic. Now, if you were a drug user, we were working in conjunction with placement in other places. You see, there's a kid now that I know that has, from drugs, he has mental health issues. So now finally they're locking him up. He keeps escaping from placement, and I had said to the judge, we need to detain him in a camp where he can really, or Dorothy Kirby, where he can really get help. Mm-hmm. So the public defenders kept fighting and fighting. They put him in placement. So now he's probably going to go to camp now.
You used to have a hammer.
Yes.
People used to get arrested and they'd have a choice, go to rehab or go to jail.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore.
No.
So the motivating factor that got people in the rehab isn't there anymore.
No.
So now you got all these people. It's harder to get people in detox today. You know why? And I'm going to let Stephanie help me with this one. Because when it comes to fentanyl, the withdrawals, you could talk about the withdrawals.
The withdrawals from fentanyl are very, very horrifying. I've worked in the field for 17 years, and one of my specialties is MAT services, MAT standing for Medications for Addiction Treatment. And, we offer these medications to individuals that are addicted to these opiates. And even with fentanyl, it's just so bad. They come into treatment and you're crying out for help.
And what's really hard is they know coming into treatment that they can't really have any Suboxone for at least 48 hours.
Correct.
Because it's just going to put them in more withdrawals.
Correct. Precipitated withdrawals. Correct.
Explain that so people understand what that means.
Precipitated withdrawals are, a withdrawal that is induced by the medication. Most people come in requesting, some type of a detox med or needing some type of a detox med, and it has Narcan in it. It has naloxone in it, in Suboxone, and it's a double combination of medication. Buprenorphine and naloxone makes Suboxone, and if we give that to them too soon, we'll throw them into withdrawal, and we're not helping them.
So the very medicine that helps them gets them sicker.
Gets them sicker.
If we do it too soon.
Correct.
And they know that, so they know that they're going to come in. And it didn't always used to be like this. If somebody was using opiates, let it be pills or heroin, we put them on Suboxone, they'd be okay.
Right.
Fentanyl is a game changer all the way around.
Right.
It puts them in, like you said,
Precipitated withdrawal.
So that means they know before they come in that they're going to suffer for at least almost 48 hours, and suffer is bad. That's saying it lightly. How bad is the detox?
It's like the flu times 10.
I was going to ask you that. You already touched on that case. I was going to ask you a question. When I first came and started working as an intervention specialist, I was a gang officer for 35 years. Periphery, on the surface, I dealt with people with drugs. My focus then was putting them in, getting them help, or detaining the people who were selling.
Right.
But last year, when I first started working for the sheriffs, a guy came in, and I was just like, okay. And he was talking, and he said to me, you know what, Mr. Robinson, as I'm coming down, I feel like I have the flu. And you touched on it, and I just wanted you to explain more of that feeling of having, quote, the flu.
The flu.
Yes.
Okay, so the withdrawal symptoms, like having the flu times 10. We're talking about vomiting, diarrhea, chills, tremors, hot and cold flashes, runny nose, tearing eyes.
Okay.
They call it kicking.
Okay.
Because
diarrhea, vomiting,
Yes.
stomach cramps.
Okay.
It feels like your skin's on fire. Your
Right.
freaking hair
restless
hurts.
leg syndrome.
Oh,
And Stephanie,
they'd be flopping their hands and legs.
Yeah.
because of
I
it.
saw that, and he stood up. This is my first time working. My first ever with that. He got up, he stood against a wall, and he started growling. And I was looking at him, and I'm like, and he said, I just feel like I want to go off. And he was growling. And I was like looking, and, I was a gang officer, so I'm like, okay, let me just watch this. And then he was talking me through what was going on with him, and everything that you said he was doing, and his nose was running, his eyes were blurry, and he was looking around, and then he started vomiting. So his dad took him from the station, said, I'm going to take him home. But the father called me and said they went down somewhere to Newport and took him and admitted him in. But that was my first time seeing that. I was used to seeing people on meth.
Right.
Tweaker. I was
Right.
used to seeing people on rock cocaine. I was used to seeing people on marijuana really slumped over, eyes red.
PCP where you were.
Oh, and I dealt when I was working with people on PCP where they just had enormous strength and hollering out and running through the street. But I had never seen anything like that. And so what I did was I wrote it down, what I saw, my observation. So when you touched on that, that was really educational for me.
Right. One time I had a patient who told me the only way I can describe it, the withdrawal from fentanyl is I want to crawl out of my own skin.
He said that.
Yep.
They
I
all
want to
say
crawl out of my own skin.
He said that. He said to me, they call me Grizzly. I said, why do they call you that? And then while he was talking, he was doing that, and I was looking at him, and I thought he was faking. And his father said, no, he does that. He does that. He growls, and he walks around. His nose is all those things that you said. That was my first introduction to that.
It's so sad to watch. They cry,
Yeah.
scream,
Yes.
beg
Do you
for
remember-
God.
Do you remember at the center I was there and a guy came in and you and Lance, the clinic, the guy was hollering. Remember you and
Oh,
you
yeah,
was
yeah,
telling
yeah,
the
yeah,
sheriffs
yeah.
to take him. I was there and I observed
That was alcohol detox.
Yeah, that was alcohol
Because
detox.
that's and we, since we're talking about that for a second, I'm going to just kind of go that way for a second. Alcohol detox is one of the most dangerous detoxes
Yes, it is.
ever in history. You want to
Yes,
talk about that?
Yes. So alcohol.
So everybody knows I stole Stephanie from another program.
Gonna have
She
to have
was
her come
actually she's been working there for many years and was in charge of their medication-assisted treatment. And Action Drug Rehab is now going to be offering Matt Services. So we're going to be able to do outpatient detox.
Yes.
And Stephanie's going to tell you all about that, but talk about the alcohol detox first.
So the alcohol detox, it really requires an inpatient medical detox. It is very, very dangerous. Patients suffer from, having seizures, things like that, which can ultimately, cause death.
In fact, 30-something% of people that are alcohol medically addicted to alcohol, not physically addicted to alcohol, without medical services will die.
Correct.
It's a 30-something% mortality rate.
Correct.
That's scary. The person that you're talking about came in, and this poor guy, his brain was starting to get very bad off because of the alcohol. And what happens is as soon as he starts drinking, he goes into a psychosis.
Yes, that's what I saw.
And right now, sadly, he went to our rehab and to a psych hospital and to 2 other rehabs, and now he's in jail waiting to go to prison.
Wow.
And he's still not all the way normal.
Right.
He's done some severe damage to his brain.
Right.
And the thing about what you're doing, Stephanie, I understand it. And as you are talking, I saw a lot of that when I worked in the streets constantly. And, I was like, okay, and we had other people who were very versed at it, and I was standing around. But I've seen people get very strong, of course, with PCP, jump out of windows.
Do you know why that is? It's not that they're strong.
No.
It's that they don't feel pain.
No. That's
So
true.
when you don't feel pain, you could you have extra human strength because you don't feel the pain that stops you from going that way.
When I was a probation officer, we went to do a home visit. The guy jumped out of a window. It wasn't too high, but he jumped out. It was pretty much about 2 or 3 feet up. And the guy that I was with, he said, we don't have to run after him. We'll see him again. Lo and behold, he jumped out of the window, hollering and screaming. 3 or 4 weeks later, we saw him walk, and he was limped over, walking. He said, see, you don't have to run after. We have him now. And so, as you said, he didn't feel any pain.
Right.
And being a young gang probation officer, I was just amazed at this, how these people had this extra enormous strength running and jumping over. I seen people jump over fences. It was high. Just take a leap and get over without even touching it. Right. And then when they came down, they didn't either remember it or they were in such severe pain.
Right.
And I saw that.
That's when the pain comes.
Yes.
Because PCP is used for what?
Yeah.
It's a tranquilizer. And a pain med, so kind of thing. So you don't feel it. So anyways, let's go ahead on break. When we come back, I want to talk about why it's so important today to get people on detox meds and even keep them on meds a little bit longer. So we'll talk about maintenance when we come back.
Sure.
This is the Action Drug Rehab Hour on KHTS. Welcome back to the Action Drug Rehab Hour here on KHTS. I'm Cary Quashen. I am your host. I got Robbie Robinson with me. He's the intervention specialist. What a title for the Sheriff's Department here in Santa Clarita. He's been a gang probation officer for like 30-something years and a wealth of knowledge and one of the heroes here in Santa Clarita. The Sheriff's Department does a really great job of 2 things. One is taking care of business when it comes to arresting the people that need to be arrested, and 2 is offering treatment and help for people who want treatment and help. So they brought actually Robbie Robinson on, and his job for the Sheriff's Department is to intervene, huh?
Correct.
And then we got Stephanie Ortiz, which I kind of took from another program because I've been never really going into the maintenance kind of treatment, but now that fentanyl's in the picture, it's a game changer completely all the way around. And so many of these fentanyl addicts or even opiate addicts, they go to treatment over and over and over and over again, and then we hear they die.
Correct.
So we have to do something different. So we started all kinds of different programs. I'm going to let Stephanie tell you a little bit about what we started.
Thank you. So Action Family Counseling is now offering medications for addiction treatment on a detox and a maintenance level of care for our outpatient programs. We do have private insurance, and we also have now our Medi-Cal funded programs that will allow individuals to come in for integrated care, to receive outpatient services, behavioral health component, along with the medications on a long-term basis, which is what our maintenance is.
Right. So we do medication management. We do intensive outpatient for all levels, for all insurance companies now, including Medi-Cal. And we're contracted with everybody just about.
Right.
And now, yay, that Medi-Cal, which is took us about 5 years to get. And we also will do partial for people who need it. And we have residential treatment centers, and and detox.
Right.
So we got a whole full everything now. So it's very exciting. Why is it so important for some people to go on maintenance? Because a lot of people have a hard time with that.
Right,
especially providers, treatment centers.
Right, treatment centers. There's no such thing as complete abstinence anymore, not when you're dealing with fentanyl. We need to come to the realization that we're not all wired the same. What might work for one person might not work for the next. And, I'm extremely grateful that there is this medication here and set in place for these individuals to be able to get their life back, for them to be able to be, functioning members of society again. They can go to work and they can, get their families back and do the things that they used to be able to do before they started using these drugs. Maintenance doesn't have to technically mean forever. It just means it's longer than what the detox is.
What does maintenance do? What's the goal of maintenance?
The goal for maintenance is to get somebody medicated and eliminate their urges and their cravings to continue to use those drugs, and then slowly titrate them.
It's not a substitute.
It is not a substitute. It is not a substitute whatsoever. Suboxone, which is our medication that we're leaning more towards for our detox and our maintenance, it's a partial agonist, meaning it's not full agonist like your methadone or your opiates are. It is a partial agonist which allows individuals to gradually taper up and gradually taper down under the care of a provider, so that they can do it successfully.
Wow, that's pretty.
Wow.
This fentanyl changed everything.
It sure has.
I mean, literally, it's a game changer. They say that for the first time, this is one of the reasons why we're doing this. For the first time in history, the life expectancy in this country went down.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Due to fentanyl.
Right.
That the number one killer now is accidental overdoses from, they say, 18 to 45. I'm hearing now it's going to 14 to 45, which is what I've been saying.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Isn't that 14 to 45?
Oh, yeah. It's amazing, and
it's so horrible.
It's very horrible. And as I work in the streets, and I work with a really good Deputy Rooney, we go out in the area of Valverde and Castaic, and I've come across kids. I can look at them and tell that they've been using fentanyl.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm an expert, but from observation, I can tell. And we go and talk with the parents, and a lot of the parents, not all, a lot of them are in total denial, or they know what's happening but are afraid to reach out.
Right.
Because they think it'll make the family look bad, or they think that they have fallen short as a parent.
Right.
And so what happens is I'm seeing a lot of denial when we're talking to parents, well, your kid's using drugs. And a lot of them won't believe it. And it's really hard. But, you read I have videos and Captain Diaz showed a very good video, and you can see there was 3 or 4 people talking about they found their kids dead inside their home, and fentanyl, they were using another drug, but fentanyl was the major killer. Fentanyl was the thing that took their life.
Right.
So
Most kids don't even know that they're using fentanyl.
No.
You know, it's mixed or laced in other
Yes.
things that,
Yes.
you know, they're getting their hands on, whether it be at school or after school,
Yes.
you know. And it's very sad. It's very sad.
Yes.
One of the things that I'm extremely grateful with Action Family Counseling is we have a multifamily group every Thursday night, which allows, you know, youth and adults and their families to come in and be a part of it and get educated and
Right.
understand addiction. And, you know, we are also offering Narcan,
Yes.
Narcan kits. And
Yes.
here's our overdose awareness kit that we are offering to all of our clients, all of their families.
Right.
So yeah, I believe that everybody out there, if you have somebody in your house using,
Right.
you better give us a call and get one of these
Correct.
Narcan kits. What it is, and you know what, you're doing really good
Okay, so this is a
for someone that didn't want to go on air.
right. This is a Narcan kit. This is 4 milligrams of naloxone, and it is a nasal spray for suspected opiate overdose. Now, when I say opiate overdose, it's not going to work for alcohol and it's not going to work for benzodiazepines. It is strictly for opiate. If you find somebody who is not breathing or is unconscious, immediately pick up the phone, dial 911, and open the spray. Please administer the spray immediately. There are instructions. We also have them in a box that'll take you step by step and show you how to use it if you're unsure. And the bottom down
And we will teach you how to
right,
do it.
and we will teach you as well. The bottom down here is the plunger. The only thing you do is open it up, stick this piece in their nose, push the plunger. But please have that phone on.
And don't test it first.
Right.
Because it's only one shot.
One shot.
You test it, it's gone.
4 milligrams. Please have your phone on speaker and dial 911 so you can communicate with the operator on the other line. Please let them know that you administered Narcan. And one important thing is, if it is with a group of people who are getting high together, you know, lots of times they're afraid to call 911 because they're afraid of getting arrested, or, you know, they'll take them and drop them off at the nearest emergency room, and people are dying like that.
Yes.
So,
But also, there's a good Samaritan. law.
right, the new law, it's called the 911 Drug Immunity Law. It passed, I believe, 2 Januaries ago.
Yes.
I want to say January 2021. Nobody gets in trouble anymore.
Right.
Nobody gets in trouble. Nobody gets arrested for calling. So please, you know, this can save a life.
I've heard so many times where people said everybody left them.
Right.
You know, you cannot get arrested for calling 911 if somebody's
Correct.
overdosing. Also, talk about this. If somebody is not overdosing from opiates and they use this, it won't harm them.
It will not harm them.
It's
Correct.
just like water.
Right.
When it comes to that. What it does, how does it work? We have receptors in our brain.
Right.
Opiates get stuck on our receptors.
Right. The
What is-
opiates get stuck on the receptors, and this Narcan or naloxone spray immediately strips the opiates off of the receptor in the brain.
And by no means are we endorsing drug usage.
Correct.
But we are endorsing life-saving stuff. And it's not that people are saying, well, if I give Narcan, we're endorsing it. No.
No, not at all.
Fentanyl is a game changer.
Yes.
And we have to protect lives, and that's what this does. If you think about the overdoses, I don't know anyone that bought fentanyl and died.
Right.
I know many people that bought ecstasy, Percocet, Oxy, Vicodin, Xanax,
Right.
those pills, thinking that's what it was, and they died from fentanyl overdose.
Correct.
So what we got to understand is there is no more real pills anymore.
Right.
Doctors aren't writing them. Nobody's able to doctor shop anymore.
Right.
So if you don't get them from a pharmacy, they're not real.
Right.
Period. They're not real. So you have to. And what's the biggest drug dealing platform there is? You know what it is. Snapchat.
Yeah.
They deliver them to your house. Every kid I know that uses drugs, and I ask them where they get it, guess what they say? Snapchat.
Online. Mm-hmm.
Online. It's insane.
Yeah.
And what we would, so the message that I really think that we need to be giving right now is not that fentanyl kills. Everybody knows fentanyl kills. The message we need to give out right now is all drugs are deadly.
Correct.
Everything is deadly right now. Everything is deadly. So kids that experiment, we talked about experimenting with drugs and recreationally using. You're recreationally using, every time you recreationally use something, you're playing Russian roulette, man. It's that crazy, isn't it?
Correct.
Right.
Definitely correct.
So what message do you want to give out there? I mean, how do we convince kids and parents that this is a deadly game and they can't win? I believe, and I really do believe this, that everybody using opiates or pills that are buying them online or out in the streets are going to die. I believe that. I really do.
Oh, yeah.
It's just where we're at right now. And if we don't, I always say, we're not going to buy our way out of this. We're not going to arrest our way out of this. What we could do, though, is we can educate, arrest. That's what's going to work. We need a whole, and make beds available. So there's got to be education. There's got to be arrest for the dealers. There's got to be serious, consequences.
Yeah, well, when I was a gang officer, and I used to speak a lot on gangs, and I had three things: intervention, prevention, and suppression. You don't have those elements, things start to deteriorate, and you have no system to hold people accountable. And then I had three things, and I won't go into it. I have four things that I want to talk about real briefly: enabling, overcoming denial, and recognizing denial. Again, enabling, overcoming denial, and recognizing denial. Because a lot of the parents will not, or guys will not get into treatment, or I don't want this to look bad on me, or my son is, it's okay, I can deal with it. No, you can't deal with it. So we have these things in place. What's so great about the city of Santa Clarita is there's so many resources. With the sheriffs, with you and all, there's a bunch of resources. People have to want to do it. You've got to want to get better. But a lot of times, if nothing's happening, no consequence, you just keep doing the same thing over and over. And then by the time you do want to get better, now you're looking at prison.
Right.
And there it is.
Right. I had somebody leave rehab today. This is the third time this person left rehab. And she's an adult. Mm. But what happens is she comes to rehab because her family gets fed up and she overdoses or something crazy. And I'm not breaking HIPAA because I'm not mentioning names, but family says you got a complete rehab, and somewhere after about a week or two, she calls up and parents say, "Come home." Right. So she says, "I can go home now. Bye."
Enabling.
That's how you deal with that. I mean, I've been doing this for 40 years, and I still don't understand why people do that. It's like it's going to be different. Folks, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting the results to be different. When it comes to substance abusers, I absolutely believe that the definition of insanity is different.
Yes.
It's doing the same thing over and over again, knowing the results are going to be the same.
Right.
Because they do.
Right.
But once that addiction takes over, it's like, boom. And enabling's not any different.
I wanted to give you this thing, or just this little sentence where it says, why do we enable? We become enabled because we feel we have no other choices. Many times we have learned this behavior from our family of origin. We may be ignorant or in denial about the seriousness of a person's behavior. Many times we are able to rationalize, justify, and make excuses for our decision. We get so locked into the way things have always been done that it's hard to even think about a different way of setting limits and consequences within our family. That's enabling. That's what people do. And here's the other thing. The most difficult issue to deal with is identifying a person using persons using drugs. I'm in denial, and that's not happening. Oh, that's not happening in my time. You're just making that up. You see?
What's some indicators of a kid using drugs? Want to tell us? Want me to tell them?
You can tell them.
How about dropping grades?
Yeah.
Right?
How about
Associating with different people.
associating with different
Dressing a different way.
dressing different?
Language is different. You are constantly wanting to sleep. You want to be disassociated with regular people.
Sleeping habits?
Sleeping and eating habits.
Eating habits?
You know, and your body odors, not taking care of yourself. And what we used to hear when I was working in South Central, we used to hear, that guy's a vampire, Rob, when I first started. And I'm like, what? That, he's out there all night looking for the drug, Rob. He's a vampire. So I started hearing terminology, certain terminology, street lexicon, street jargon constantly being used.
Yep.
And then I started to pick up.
Loss of weight?
Yes.
Staying up all night?
Yes.
Dramatic loss of weight.
Yes.
I mean, it's how about anger bursts,
Yes.
depression?
Yes. And
It's pretty easy to find it. You know why people don't see it though? You know how much how many minutes the average parent spends talking to their kid these days? This is really scary. This is a national fact. 2 to 10 minutes.
Yes.
Wow.
So if you're not connected with your kid that's a teenager, how do you see all that? You
Well,
don't. If you're not watching.
You see it when you go to a restaurant. Everybody sits down and everybody pulls out their phone. Nobody's talking. Nobody's saying, well, what's going on? When I sit down with my wife, I can leave my phone in the car.
At least in your pocket, huh?
Yeah, leave it in. If
Put
it
it down.
hums, she said, what's that?
What
I'll
message,
talk to her
Robbie,
later.
what message are you giving your kid if you sit down at a table and you pick up the phone and pretend they're not there?
That's true.
That what?
Yeah.
They're not important.
You're absent. That's just as bad as not being at home. Absentee father.
Yeah.
Or mother.
I have to say I'm going to bouncing all over the place because I want to get as much information in an hour show that we got. So I was reading, I was actually watching the news, and do you know that seniors are going into the hospital ERs in droves? It's up 1,800% because of THC.
Yes.
Seniors, 1,800% since 2018. 1,800% seniors are up going into the ERs because of that THC we were talking about. So the reason I'm saying that is it's just so crazy out there, right? Everything's crazy. It's not like it was when a lot of the parents go, well, you know what? When I was young, hey, it's you made it. That doesn't mean that your kids are going to make it now.
That's true.
It's a whole different world. Everything is different. Everything is different. So I don't know. I'm glad that we brought you on, Stephanie,
Oh,
to
yes.
really talk about what's going on.
Thank
and
you.
again, if somebody, who should have this? Who should have Narcan in their homes?
Everybody.
Yes.
Everybody should have Narcans in their homes,
And their cars.
their cars. Yeah. Anybody who has family members or friends or anybody that they know that might possibly have an opiate use disorder, please, give us a call.
Restaurants,
Right.
offices,
Yes.
libraries,
Right.
Yes.
Everywhere.
schools.
Any anything public where the public is
Parks.
constantly going. Yes.
Yes.
Everywhere.
Terminals, bus terminals.
This is when somebody overdoses on an opiate, you got what you call very this little tiny window.
Tiny, tiny
It's
window.
like minutes at best.
Right.
And if you don't have any life-saving equipment at your hands, and we're going to have a lot more dead people.
Right.
And I'm scared to death about that. I've been screaming about this for years, and sadly, the whole world's now screaming about it. And it's at that point. Anyways, we're going to take a break. This is the Action Drug Rehab Hour here in Santa Clarita on AM 1220, 98.1 FM KHTS.
Well, hello everyone. We're just coming back. We have Miss Stephanie Ortiz here, and we have Cary Quashen, and I'm just amazed at some of the things that they were talking about, and especially
My co-host, Robbie. He's good, isn't he? Just check him out.
and especially Stephanie, and we wanted to elaborate more on detox and just the knowledge that she has, which is going to be very beneficial for you out there. And as we continue on, I want you a lot of times not to be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out when you're having a problem. It doesn't mean that you're a bad parent or a bad person. You're just all of us need help. all of us need help, and we need someone to talk to, and sometimes we have to hear things that we don't want to hear. A boxing coach told me this: you're going to learn your best lesson. Yes, but a boxing coach, my karate instructors told me, some of your best lessons are going to be learned from people you disagree with, you have a problem with, or you dislike. But in this case, we love you and we want to help you.
Absolutely. So we were talking on break, and Stephanie said some pretty cool stuff.
Yes.
What did you say on break? First of all, you'll have what and when?
20 years of sobriety next month.
Awesome.
That's excellent.
That is freaking cool.
Thank you. Thank you. I know what type of an addict I was once upon a time. So I can honestly tell you that if I can do it, I feel anybody can do it. I got into this field because I wanted to educate myself on my addiction and why we do the things that we do. What is so powerful on these chemicals that we put into our body that hijack our brain and make us do things that we wouldn't normally do? And in educating myself, I became a drug and alcohol counselor. I'm now the program manager for Action Family Counseling. I have 17 years in the field, like I said before, and I love what I do. I have a compassion for helping people. No, it's not. It's not a job. I mean, don't get in the field if you're looking for a paycheck, please, because you have to have the love and the passion just to be able to help people, so. Yeah. I love what I do. I love mat services, and a little bit on speaking out for people who are interested in detox is please don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call. Us in the detox, or I should I say us in this field. If we can't get you in, we know somewhere where we can get you in. We work together, referrals. And we will get you placed. It's all about saving somebody's life.
Since we became a Medi-Cal provider, we also have access to the Medi-Cal provider list.
Correct.
So we know now where there's open beds.
Correct.
And all that kinds of stuff. So we can help. Anyone that needs help, call us.
Right.
And we will be there to help us. If you don't call us, I love the old Cary unit commercials. Remember that? If you don't want to get help from us, get help from somewhere else.
Right.
But get help today, because it's one of those kind of things that it's a live or die thing now.
Right.
Yes, it is.
It's not a get sober or not. It's a get sober, get clean, or die.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, people.
It's so frustrating.
People notice that when people are dying, or you hear of a death from fentanyl, everybody's like, "Oh my gosh!" But there were telltale signs, and a lot of people ignored these signs, especially with your children when they want to be by themselves constantly and do other things. I talked about a guy who's an adult, and he will not come to rehab. The mother is very very supportive, and I've spoken with her. It's been about a year now. He's been arrested and released. It's not the sheriff's fault. But what's happening now is he's taking, as I think I said this, he's taking over the grandmother's house now. And he's allowing other drug addicts to come in. And she told her daughter she feels captive. I've reached out to her numerous times and told her that we can come to the house and talk with her and help her.
Robbie, if somebody needs to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you?
You can reach me on my cell phone. My number is 661-607-2038.
One more time, please.
My number is 661-607-2038.
Intervention specialist at the Sheriff's Department. Stephanie, if somebody wants to get a hold of you.
Yes, you can reach me at area code 747-474-3119. Again, that's 747-474-3119. 3119.
Or 1-800-367-8336. My name's Cary Quashen. I want to thank you for listening to the Action Drug Rehab Hour. I want to thank Stephanie and Robbie. You guys are awesome. Until next week.